Welcome to Pastor Connection Live. This is our first broadcast of an actual interview here on Pastor Connection Live. I'm Pastor Travis Schroeder. This is my guest here, Reverend Brad Schoengert. Just want to ask everybody to be patient with us as we do this this morning or this afternoon here on this beautiful Thanksgiving Day in Chaffee, Missouri. If you don't know where Chaffee, Missouri is at, don't worry, nobody else does either. We're just outside of Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which is about 2 hours south of St. Louis. And if you don't know where St. Louis is, then you need to buy a map. Anyway, I'm just joking around. This fellow right here is one of the best friends I've ever had. Got to know him a long time ago, and I'm gonna introduce him, and we're gonna. I've got a few questions I'm gonna ask him, and just kind of get to know Brad here. And I already know him, but so you can connect with him, because the idea of this Pastor Connection is that we can connect pastors to people. To help you understand that pastors, while we have a special calling into a ministry to pastor, it doesn't stop us from being a man or a woman. But we're people too, and we have things that we love to do, and we have things that get on our nerves. Maybe that should be one of the questions that I ask. What's the one thing that gets on your nerve the most?
Let's stay away from that.
But just, I mean, even talking about fears that we have in ministry and things of such. So we're gonna kick this off here this wonderful Thanksgiving Day, so I'm gonna try not to end a bunch of times. But we'll see what we can do. So again, I'm Pastor Travis Schroeder. I'm the pastor at Chaffee Assembly of God here in Chaffee, Missouri. And this is my guest. This is Pastor Brad Schoengert. He is the pastor at Clyde First Assembly of God in Clyde, Texas. And I think that if you don't know where Clyde is, well, most of us don't either. So, Brad, why don't you tell us a little bit about where Clyde is at? And
Well, Clyde's right outside of Abilene, Texas. So, Abilene's pretty easy to find. So, we're about 8 miles outside of Interstate 20, going east from Abilene. A small town, about 4,000 people.
yeah. So, now Abilene, Texas. I think that's been mentioned in songs and stuff like that in the past. But that's about 2 hours outside of a really big city. What's that city?
Oh, Dallas.
Dallas. And that's home of, if you can see underneath my nice shirt here, even though I'm not a big supporter of the number 9 here, is the Dallas Cowboys are going to be playing in just a couple hours as they destroy the Redskins. If you're a Redskins fan, I'm so sorry. But my friend here, he gets to live right outside of Dallas.
Yeah,
and,
it's about 2.5 hours west of Dallas.
Okay, yeah, well, awesome. So tell us a little bit about Texas.
Texas?
Yeah.
Well, I've only been there a year, so I'm not a traditional Texan, but we really like it. The whole family. It's awesome. The weather's great. My family all lives in Wyoming, and while I've got 70-degree weather, they got snow and freezing weather.
Yes,
It's
we
awesome.
we love you for that kind of stuff. Because here in Missouri, the saying is, if you don't like the weather today, just wait till tomorrow because it'll be completely different, right?
Right.
'Cause I've went to work before with it being 70 degrees and we had a foot of snow on the ground by the time I got off work. It's just that crazy here. But in Texas, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's nice. In fact, just last week, I went for a walk. It was 10 o'clock at night. Went for a walk, and there's a porcupine walking down the street.
A porcupine.
A porcupine walking down the street in town, just a few houses up from my house. I had a hard time figuring out what it even was. I stayed on this side of the road, it stayed on that side of the road, and it didn't get scared. At first I thought it might have been a skunk, but there's no stripe, and it looked weird, and it wobbled, and I went home and looked it up because it was in the shadows, it was hard to tell, and it was a porcupine.
Wow.
In Texas.
That's awesome. I remember going to Arizona when I was a kid. I was 3 years old, so I remember like 2 seconds of the whole trip, right? But when we went to Arizona, I got to see my first Roadrunner.
Okay, we
You
got
know, like
roadrunners
little
too.
Roadrunner
Yeah.
bird. And I was like, "Where's the coyote?" Right? And so,
Well, the first roadrunner we saw when in Texas, my wife saw it, and she's like, "It's just like the cartoon."
yeah. So anyway, Well, so you like living down in Texas? You like
Absolutely
the weather?
love it. It's awesome.
This past summer, we went down. Our family went down to visit his family, and you had a monsoon that came through.
We had a lot of rain this summer. They had a drought for a long time.
So were the people blaming it on you because you moved down there?
I don't
First
know.
time it rained like that, and
I don't know. It like rained all summer. It was funny that all the streets were flooded and the alleyways were flooded. In fact, Connor, my middle son, took one of our canoes out of the backyard with a friend up the street and was canoeing down the alley because it was flooded with water. He just thought that was absolutely hilarious.
So
yeah, it had a lot of water.
Don't even have to travel to canoe in Texas.
That's right.
During
No.
that time, but
No. But it's not normally that way. I'm told that it's dry quite often.
yeah. We got to go visit, and so is it true what they say that everything's bigger in Texas?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's got speed limits are higher. In fact, 75 mile an hour on 2-lane windy roads.
75 miles an hour.
75 mile an hour.
Yeah. Well, you don't go 75 in Chaffee. Speed limit in Chaffee is 20. Ask my wife. All right. So anyway, so Brad and I here we became friends. I was like 13 or 14 years ago.
Yeah, a long time.
We met. We started going to a church called Faith Assembly of God. Put a plug in there for good old Pastor Mario Gonzalez out there in Springfield, Missouri. Faith Assembly of God. Great church. You live in Springfield area. You need to stop by and visit them. Tell them that we sent you there. And maybe you shouldn't because I don't know.
Go ahead and tell him, and he might let you in.
Yeah, he might let you come.
No, he will. I promise.
But we met. We met going to Faith. I'd been coming to church here a couple of months, and Brad was a deacon on the board. I think he was one of the youngest deacons the church had ever had at that time. He's not young anymore. He's old.
Not that old.
Yeah, well, you're not as old as I am yet, but
Yeah.
you're getting there. But so we wanted to talk a little bit about how we became friends, and I say we. He mentioned it. So what was it that happened for us that really, you know?
Well, in Springfield, they used to have James River would put on the big 4th of July.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So we would go try to get people together as a church and go. They have like 100,000 people there.
Yeah.
For the 4th of July. So
we
we all
can't beat
went.
a free fireworks show.
That's right.
They did an awesome
It was
job.
awesome. It was
really
awesome.
good.
They, so we were there and we spent all day and get to know each other. But what we really hit it off was we had little kids at the time, babies, and so being the good husbands, we decided to go get the car and leave all of our wives with the baby, and so. We went in the car, but there was, 100,000 people.
Yeah, everybody's trying to leave. There was no moving.
And everybody's leaving at the same time, and we got stuck there. It was Travis and myself and another man named Richie, and the three of us were standing there, and we just started talking, and just normal everyday guy stuff, just stuff that you talk about to somebody you grew up in high school with, and so we just hit it off really well, just having normal conversations, not anything crazy.
Yeah, no, like I told him earlier, and we've mentioned this before, that if you want to know the conversation we had, then you need to get to be a little bit closer friend to us because we're not going to share that in public.
It's not bad. You make that sound like it's awful. It's not like we're talking about things you're not supposed to talk about. But we just normal guy stuff.
Yeah, just guy stuff. Because men are men.
That's right.
And for another plug, you want to go to a Manly Men thing. I believe it's April 28th and 29th in Springfield, Missouri, the Stronger Men's Conference. Awesome event, manly men stuff that they've got going on there. But Brad and I and another fellow named Richard Gallagher, we stood out and we yacked for a while, and by the time we were actually able to move the car and go pick up our wives,
they weren't very happy.
They weren't real happy with us. So,
it was well over an hour. It was over an hour standing there, but it wasn't our fault. Honestly, it wasn't our fault.
No, it wasn't. There was lots of cars, but you know how it works. With
Yes.
Your wife will always hold a grudge against you.
That's right.
And remind you of it. Your entire marriage.
Yeah, 15 years later, it'll still come up. Right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, for me, today is my 17-year wedding anniversary.
Well,
so,
congratulations.
Yeah, we always joke around because we actually got married on the day before Thanksgiving, but it was the 24th of November we got married, and it just awesome. I just am so excited to be married to such a wonderful woman. Hopefully she's watching this, and I'll get some brownie points, and you know how that works. But
But she won't forget that story.
no, she'll never forget that story. There's lots of stories that they never forget. Well, so as we said, just 1 second. I know. Remember, this is our first go with this, so we're asking for a little bit of patience. Our cameraman sitting behind our camera here has pointed to me a couple times about something. Is there like a lighting problem?
It's a little bright.
Okay, if you want the on the back wall back here, the last one on the right, if you need to dim it down to kind of help us out. So thank you for. No, I think that'll just kill the light. There's a little switch right next to it that will dim it down some. There you go. I don't know if that helps or not, but
Learning process.
yes, definitely a learning process.
Learning process.
We were afraid that we wouldn't have enough to talk about, but you know, I found over the years that not only do I like to talk a lot, my friend Brad here likes to talk a lot.
Not me. I never say a word.
Yeah, no, well, but anytime you got a pastor that's got somebody to watch him or listen to him, he's got plenty to say. But like I said, this whole deal is about connecting pastors to the people that are out there, answering questions. Anybody that's watching, you know, if you've got a question, I know right now, I don't know how YouTube Live works as well. If you can send questions our way, I don't think we pick up any of that stuff. But if you want to comment questions on this feed, you know, Brad and I will both be able to see it, and then it's things that I can ask other pastors in the future, topics that we can kind of cover. But some of the things I'm going to do will be basic questions I'll ask, you know, all the different pastors. What I want to ask first off is, now we've got to know Brad just a little bit more, and myself, but tell us a little bit about the ministry that you're involved in down there in Clyde, Texas.
Well, like you said, I'm the pastor of First Assembly of Clyde. So it's a small church, but we're growing, and we're doing a lot of fun stuff. We've got kids programs now. It's exciting here. On December 18th, we're gonna have a Christmas program with kids.
Awesome.
My wife's been doing that, and it's really neat because Becky's been teaching the kids on prayer and stuff, and these little kids, everything that they've been praying for, God's been answering.
That's awesome.
And of course, you know, she's steering them to pray for, you know, things that are appropriate to pray for, you know, not praying for $1 million, you know, stuff like that. But she started with 2 kids and was teaching them on prayer, and so she said, well, let's pray to have more kids. And they wrote it down and they prayed, and it was just within 2 weeks. We had like another 8 or 10 kids just show up. Weren't a part of the church, just show up with their families because of other things that were going on. And so instantly the kids' church grew. And Becky said that one of the little girls, her name's Chloe, came up to her and said, Miss Becky, she said, God does answer prayer. And so, I mean, there's a lot of cool things that are happening.
That's awesome.
In Clyde.
That's awesome. So, so you've got yourself, you have a youth group?
We do. Well, our youth group right now are my 3 boys. And there's a couple girls from the town that get picked up, and they come once in a while. We struggle with our youth group simply from the fact that we're not a church big enough to hire a full-time youth pastor. So we share a youth pastor with the church in Abilene, and his name's Jeremy, and he's an awesome guy, and he does a great job. But he does youth group on Wednesday nights at his church in Abilene, and he comes in and helps us on Tuesday nights, which is completely awesome. I have no complaints over that at all. However, you know, in Texas, sports are huge in the school systems, and they purposely don't plan things on Wednesdays because that's church night, and but the rest of the week is game. So you know, during football season, everything was fine because football games were on Friday nights and Thursday nights. But now that it's basketball season, and I got 3 boys, and they're all 3 on a different team through the school with junior high and high school, and there's like a basketball game every night of the week. The other 2 girls weren't able to come because they had a basketball game on. So now we're struggling with what days of the week do we have service? What can we do? And so that's just something we're praying about. So there is a little bit of a struggle there, but I believe God will give the answer. Youth group's going to grow, but we do. Yes, we have the youth group that we started. It's primarily my 3 boys, but they're trying hard to invite people.
Yeah. You know, I remember back when I became the youth pastor at Faith Assembly in Springfield, that we had a big Royal Ranger group. And I was just reading the other day that over the past year, the Royal Rangers program has grown over 70% in the past year, which is awesome. If you want to know more about Royal Rangers, go to ag.org or royalrangers.com. But you can look up information on that. But our Royal Ranger group was so big, and typically in churches, like Wednesday night's family night, right? A lot of good-sized churches, they do family night. And so what family night means is there's an adult Bible study, and then you've got like your Royal Ranger group, which typically is for kids up to middle school or junior high, and girls ministries, and some other stuff that's geared, for the kids. So really, it's more of kids' night than it is family night. But in our church, our Ranger group, the Royal Rangers will go all the way through high school, and so at Faith we had all the way up through high school, and it was so successful. We had an awesome senior commander at the time that did a lot of great stuff, and so we wouldn't have youth group because youth group is typically the Wednesday night, right? So we wouldn't do youth group on Wednesday night. My pastor, Jerry Snavely, awesome man, love him to pieces, taught me just about everything I know, and you learned a lot from him as well. But he was very adamant. Our Ranger program takes precedent on, and Mission S program takes precedent on Wednesday night. So we had that struggle too, because Wednesday night is church night. So when we're going to have youth, so we tried youth Tuesday night didn't work. Thursday night didn't work. Friday night was football. There was always something. And so somehow, some way, I convinced him to let us do service on Sunday night.
Right, I remember that.
And
it kind of started as a trial thing. People didn't know if that was going to work.
Yeah, like, oh, Sunday night, I don't know how we're going to do that. But, I remember when I first became a youth pastor, the guy that's running our camera back here, his name's Stoney Applegate. Say hello, Stoney.
Hello, Stoney.
All right. He was actually one of my two first youth group members, the first night that we did it. And we were struggling trying to figure out what to do. When we moved it for Sunday night to Sunday night, well, our youth group didn't grow to 100 or anything like that, but we went from 2 or 4 showing up to, we had quite a few that showed up. So, but the biggest thing is, of course, to pray through and all that.
Right.
So,
and it's different at every church. Every place has to find, every pastor, every church has to find what works for them.
I just read an article that actually one of my youth group students, her name was Erica Hughes, but now it's Erica Phelan, because she married a guy named Patrick Phelan. And they're the youth pastors at a church somewhere in Oklahoma, and it's called Legacy Youth. And what they did was they prayed through this, and it just blew my mind reading this article. But it said that what they did was they stopped doing regular weekly services with youth group, and they focused and did one big. They took all the resources from 4 weeks of youth to do one big event so they could just go all out. And people thought it was crazy, but they also had home groups so that they would meet in, the youth would meet in different homes. Of course, they do have a very large youth group. But this one event, they're able to impact and pour all the resources that they have into this one event. So when I first read the title of it, why did I stop having a weekly youth group? I was like, yeah, because I'm never going to do that. But once I read it for where he's at and what God's led them to do, it's a pretty awesome thing. God leads us all to do different things. There's always a new thing. I always like to point out that, there's many different methods, but the truth never changes. So, and I get the argument all the time, oh, we got to do it the same way that Grandma and Grandpa did it. Well, my deal is, and I'm sorry, I just kind of took over this here, but my deal is why was there 4 different gospels written, right? There are 4 different gospels written to 4 different kinds of people. They're written in 4 different styles of writing, 4 different ways, 4 different methods that were used to deliver the gospel. And so, God had the Bible written over such an amount of time, using different type of people with different types of backgrounds, doing things in different ways. And so to say that it has to be done the same way every time, it's something you pray through, right?
It is.
So, so you've got youth ministry that you're working on, your kids ministry starting to grow, and you're the pastor. So what does a pastor do?
What does a pastor do? Well, we preach.
Preach.
We preach, and of course, at my church, also I help with the worship. We've got another man that helps with that as well, Brother Smith, and he helps with the hymns and stuff like that. And I do the newer courses. But then there's also people who are in the hospital or sick or something like that need to come by, and I can't say that I'm the best at that. I'm still in a learning curve process of doing that myself, but there's that, being there for people, that type of stuff. There's the coordinating as well, and it's different the level of church you're at. A small church, the pastor tends to do a little bit more versus a large church that has more people to help, can maybe do less, more, or coordinate, delegate.
Right. So are you trying to say that pastors that pastor bigger churches don't do as much as pastors?
No, don't you get me in on that. Not at all. That's just me. No, I'm not saying that at all. They have a whole different level of issues they have.
Yeah.
They have a whole different level.
I remember studying Assemblies of God, and most districts in the Assemblies of God, which is what we're part of, has something called the School of Ministry, there's Global University, Berean, that you can do to help you to get your credentials with the Assemblies of God, or to just to help you study and understand Scripture better and such. But I remember reading in an article or in part of one of the books, and it gave an example of what happens in different sizes of churches. It's like a church that's got less than 50 people operates like this, and you typically have this going on, and you typically have this kind of thing going on. And then a church that has 50 to 200 people does this. And I was looking at it, and because I've been a part of multiple sizes of churches, and I'm reading this, I'm like, wow, that really hits the nail on the head, because really the pastor's job changes depending on the size of the church.
It does.
Because a pastor of a small church, you're the pastor, whether you're the pastor of a small church or a big church, you're still the pastor of all the people. But in a small church like ours, where there's 20, 30, 40 people, you're the pastor of the people. You have a one-on-one relationship with almost everybody in the church. They know you better. But whenever you start getting a little larger, you have to have more staff, because you can't be there for every single thing. If you got 200 people, it's hard to know everyone intimately. And so that's when you start getting like an associate pastor. But then you get into churches like James River Church in Ozark, Missouri, that has 10 or 12,000 people. Well, they've got multiple pastors, and so the pastor, while he preaches, he also is the pastor of the pastors.
Right.
And so
it becomes a different type of church, and
right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
It's just a different way that pastors have to pastor.
Right.
And then those of us who are pastors, we have to understand that, so that as our churches grow, we can adapt.
Right.
And sometimes that's hard. Sometimes that's hard, because I remember there was that point when we were going to Faith Assembly, where and Pastor Snavely was making that statement a lot, that we're reaching 300 people. It's time that we have to change the type of church we are. Are we a small church still, or are we changing to a corporate church? And I remember him teaching on that. And sometimes it's difficult for churches to make that switch.
Right.
It's difficult, and pastors need to recognize that, so
right.
that they can do the right thing for their church.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Well, so we've talked about this stuff. This is actually going a little longer than I thought it would, but so I'm going to cover a couple of other quick things, and then we'll close out here in just a few minutes. But some of the things I want to ask all the different ministers that we have come in, because I'm hoping to have more than just pastors. I mean, I want pastors, but I want to have missionaries come in, senior pastors, staff pastors, youth pastors, kids pastors, so that we can kind of get all the different aspects of what we do. But as a Christian, not necessarily just as a pastor, but as a Christian, what would you say that your favorite Bible verse is?
My favorite Bible verse is Jeremiah 33:3. It's call on my name, and I will answer you, and I will show you great and mighty things that you do not know.
Awesome.
And I love that verse. I mean, it's got two parts in there. First of all, it says, if you call on me, I'll answer you. I mean, that verse could be my favorite if it was just that.
Right.
call on my name and I will answer you, because I don't know how many times that I just needed him, and I called on him, and he has answered me, and he's been there. But then he goes on to say that, I'm gonna show you great and mighty things. I like seeing great and mighty things, right? I mean, that's why we watch superhero movies and all of that. We like to see great and mighty things, and as human nature, we tend to go to the fiction side. I have an almighty God that is nonfiction.
Right. Yeah.
He is real, and he can do superhero stuff.
Right.
And so he's going to show me great and mighty things, and he's going to show me things that I don't understand. And I love to learn things that I don't understand. I mean, I may not like to go into a classroom setting sometimes. I wasn't the best student at school, but to have my Savior, my God, reveal to me something that I don't understand. That's amazing. And so I like that verse. That's my favorite.
That's awesome. Awesome. Okay, so the next one is favorite Bible character or story that goes along with that Bible character.
My favorite Bible character is Peter.
Mhm.
Just simply because...
It reminds him a lot of himself.
That's right. That's right. Because Peter was always putting his foot in his mouth. I've spent my whole life with my foot in my mouth. and I just... So I can relate to Peter. I can relate to Peter when Jesus had to rebuke him because he said, well, I will, I'll fight for you. I'll go wherever you go, all that stuff. And I can also relate, when you read that story, you realize that Jesus rebuked Peter instantly, almost right away in the same conversation, after he lifted Peter up for saying that, you only knew this when Peter said, you are the Son of God. And he said, you only knew this because the Father revealed it to you. It was from divine revelation that you got this. So here Peter, he's picked up, he's lifted up. Ego pumped up a little bit, head's a little swelled, and then instantly he lets it ruin everything. And I totally get that. I get it completely. And but as far as my favorite Bible story, of course, that's including Peter, and that's when Peter walked on the water. And the reason that I like that so much is, we hear a lot of sermons and a lot of preaching and teaching about how, Peter failed. But it's not, the other 11 disciples never got out of the boat. So one would say, well, they never failed. But they didn't walk on water.
Yeah, they didn't even have the faith to get out of the boat.
Peter walked on water. And then the analogy of the story, because it's so beautiful, the fact that when Peter failed, he got scared. And we all get scared. And I've been there. I've been scared. And Jesus reaches down. Yes, he says, you have little faith. Okay? But then he pulls him up. And my favorite part is right there when it says, Jesus walked Peter back to the boat, hand in hand or arm in arm. Basically, Jesus put his arm around Peter. Peter's now walking on the water again. We forget that. Peter fails. He sinks. He comes up. And he gets to walk on water again, even though he failed. But this time, instead of doing it alone, he does it in the arms of his Savior.
Wow.
And so to me, there's no failure in that story, because my Savior takes care of the failures.
Yeah. That's just awesome, because I never thought about that aspect.
Right.
I thought about, of course, Peter's failure. I've also preached, one of my favorite sermons is talking about, those that didn't even get out of the boat, lack of faith because of that. But I never really thought about how he walked.
Right, he walked on the water twice.
Yeah.
And the second time, because of the failure, he got to do it closer to Jesus.
Right.
And so to me, that it, I've never walked on water. I've never held Jesus' hand physically, but I have stepped out in faith, and I have failed, usually because of my mouth, and that's usually where Peter failed. And Jesus has always been there to pick me up.
Yeah.
And sometimes after the failure, after the remorse and the guilt and all that sets in, it's during the cleansing period where the Holy Spirit is washing me clean, that I'm praying that I can feel Him, I can feel Jesus so real in my life, and it's because of that failure.
That's awesome. So I got two more questions, and then I'm going to do some more shameless plugs.
Okay.
And but talking about failure, I know that we're not supposed to have fear. but we're supposed to have fear in the Lord. But there's things in ministry that we'll call them concerns.
Okay, concerns. I like that, concerns.
No fear. We'll call them concerns. What would be your greatest concern in ministry? I'll just leave that open-ended there. What would be your greatest concern?
Well, I'll tell you, what scared me the most, and probably what kept me from going full-time pastor the longest, was 3 sermons a week. I mean, honestly, because I know churches are starting to change, and we don't all churches have 3 services a week. But I like the traditional Sunday morning, Sunday school, Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. And that's the church I pastor. And I mean, I'm not saying that won't ever change in the future, but if I have my say, I want it to always be that way. I like that form in the church, and that always scared me. Am I going to hear from you that plainly every week?
Mm-hmm.
To get 3 sermons a week? And I know I've heard other people talk about the confrontation with people and trying to figure out how it works, and finances and all of these different things, and yeah, those things can be scary, but they never have made me stop and think, I don't know if I'm ready for this yet. But 3 sermons a week, and even after being a pastor, and I've been a pastor for a year now, and so it hasn't been that long, but even after a year, it seems like every Monday I have that same fear. Am I going to get 3 messages this week? And every Sunday night I go home blown away. God gave me 3 messages this week. He always takes care of it. And I was even praying the other day, and I was telling God, I said, I hope that it's not wrong of me to be shocked. I said, I don't want to ever get to a place where I'm not shocked, because I want to be in awe of you all the time. And I want what you do to wow me. And every week he wows me with 3 messages. But that, I don't know why. First very week, there's that fear again. I've got 3 this week. Am I going to have time? Am I going to get it done? What am I going to do?
I think that one of the most famous sayings that I have, and people pick on me for when it comes to a message, is that, because I'll know, I didn't write much down this week. I may have only got 3 bullet points, and I don't even have all the rest of the stuff with it. And I'll say, this is going to be a short sermon.
Which we all
know. And then everybody goes, you're not supposed to lie in church, Pastor Travis.
Which we all know from the many taking a question much longer in this interview that,
Yeah, well, we were shooting for about half an hour on this, but Brad and I, we've known each other for quite a long time, so we've got to share a little more than.
Charlie Ross takes an hour.
All right.
On PBS, he's like.
Well, we're not done, so
that's right.
We've still got. I thought that I only had 2 questions left, but I still think I got 2 more. So talking about sermons.
Okay,
because I skipped one of my questions here. Talking about sermons. And that being your worst fear in ministry, your worst concern in ministry. I just have to ask you this. You always hear, so what was your best sermon? What was the best thing that ever happened? What was the greatest thing that ever happened? And so we can really go on forever. Oh, I remember the time that I preached to 3,000 people. No, that was Peter. Sorry, but they all got saved.
Yeah, I relate to Peter, but I'm not Peter.
but Brad got the opportunity. You got the opportunity to help me with some of these questions, and to really have the ability to think ahead on what you're going to say on certain things, where not everybody's going to get that. So
I feel blessed.
My question for you is what was your worst sermon ever? Like just total flop.
Oh my. Oh my. Okay, so worst sermon ever. And my family back in Wyoming, my dad texted me earlier and wanted to know what time we were going to do this. So I don't know if they're watching it live or they're watching the recording, but when they watch this part, they're all going to go, yeah, that was it. All right. So it was before I was married, and I was in Bible college. I had 1 semester. I didn't go to a lot of Bible college, but Trinity, Ellendale, North Dakota, Trinity Bible College. And my dad was the contemporary pastor at a Brethren church in Falls City, Nebraska. And I was back, and he let me preach. And I really hadn't preached that much. Once when I was a teenager, I had a pastor let me get up. I may have done one time of that. I don't really remember, but it's really one of the first ones. And we were learning in freshman seminar My favorite book I've learned in freshman seminar, and it's The Hour That Changed the World by Dick Eastman.
Mhm.
And it's my absolute favorite. In fact, if you say, what am I going to read, this month, go find that. It's The Hour That Changed the World by Dick Eastman. And basically what it is it's 12 things that you can do for 5 minutes to pray for an hour. Okay. Well, my dad let me come preach, and I love this book so much. I'm going to preach on that. But I was nervous, and I was there and a little dry. Hadn't learned how to make things fun yet. And then I got confused on the clock as well. I had a clock in the back. And I kept watching the minute hand, but I forgot to watch the hour hand. And it seemed to me like that minute hand never moved. And so I ended up preaching this whole book, a whole book. And it took me probably a little over an hour. I had people falling asleep on me. And when I got done, the senior pastor of the church, we had a thing because we had to preach so many times for school, and he filled out. He told me, he said, you don't have to preach so long. I honestly thought I only preached for like 15, 20 minutes. Found out it was over an hour. But I kept looking at the clock. I kept waiting for that minute hand just to click up to 12 o'clock. It already had done that, gone around, and I hadn't paid attention. And I wasn't. So anyway, it was really bad. It was really dry, and I'm sure they were thinking, this guy's never going to make it.
Well, look at you now.
It was bad. Now, since then, I've learned how to take that study, and instead of preaching it in a sermon, we do it in a Bible study. I've done it at your church. I've done it at my church. I did it at Sunday school when I taught Sunday school.
Actually, we've done it here at this church.
Have you done it
yeah,
here? It's an awesome study. It's just not meant for one sermon.
It's amazing how much you can talk about something that you're only supposed to do for 5 minutes, right? Because it's 12 different segments for 5 minutes apiece.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, I've noticed over the years, Pastor Snavely, he would give people the opportunity to speak for the first time, and that's what happened to me. Was I went to Pastor Snavely and I was like, God's laid a message on my heart. Can I preach? And he's like, yeah, we'll give you Sunday night, because Sunday night, that was where there wasn't as many people that came to church. And,
that was the trial.
That was the trial night. See how good you were going to do, type of thing. But I've watched many people do that, and a lot of preachers or a lot of people that's been in seminary or anything like that the first time they get up to preach, they've got so much to preach. Mm-hmm. They do it in like 10 minutes.
Right.
Boom. And everybody in the congregation, they're either like, it's over, or they're like, hallelujah, that guy got done that quick. Praise God. And then there's people like myself that I saw a little picture, thing on a little cartoon deal. It said something to the effect of, I told my wife to let me know whenever I get running down a rabbit trail too long. And so it's got the wife holding up this little bunny rabbit on a stick in the congregation because you're getting too long-winded. And so I do get kind of elbowed myself for being long-winded.
Yeah.
And I know that Brad, he can get that way too. But I think that says something about our passion.
Yeah. We're excited about what we're doing.
Yeah. I want to make sure that you completely understand what what the Lord's trying to portray.
Right.
And so that's going to lead to the last question I'm going to have, and you've kind of mentioned a few things that would kind of answer this question already, I believe, but I think it's the biggest question. As I say, we're trying to connect people with pastors to people, pastors to other pastors, what they think about this, that, or the other. We may cover other topics of different stuff in the future, but I think the biggest question for a non-Christian would be, why God? What makes you believe in a God, or in the God that you believe in?
Well, it's definitely helped me growing up in a Christian home. My parents, amazing people, and so that has been a huge influence on me. But once you experience God, He's so amazing, and He's real. He's real, and He does things on a constant basis for us. I remember before I left Springfield, I went to a minister's meeting where there was a missionary named Jim Hall was talking, and he focuses one-on-one discipleship within churches. He's a home mission. And he said something to him. I've said it to my church probably like a broken record since I've been there. But he made a comment. He said that nobody wants to hear what God did for you 20 years ago. Because that's what we do, right? I mean, we give our testimony. If you've been saved for 20, 30 years, we talk about when we got saved. He said, now that's a good testimony to give, and there's that time to do it. He said, but when you're witnessing to somebody, they're not interested in what God did 20 years ago. They're interested, what did he do last week? What did he do this year? And realizing that God is so real, he does things on a continual basis for us all the time. He's always there to help us. I remember just an example of when he was there, and this, I'm going back somewhere around 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. We're having some issues. We were between pastors at church that I was going to in Springfield, and I was on the board, on the pulpit committee, and just having some struggles. And I remember that there was just a time of, I just felt so stressed, and a lot of just negative thoughts and issues that we were dealing with, and I remember being at home, and I twice I did this during this 6-9 month period, but I was at home and just weeping because I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to show up at church with these other men, showing my weakness. I wanted to show that I was strong, and just weeping and just asking God, you have to take this. I can't deal with this stress. You have to take it. I even remember one time I was one of those times I was sitting in the living room chair, and I was just weeping publicly in my house, so much that my youngest son Wesley just came up and gave me a hug and just sat on my lap, giving me a hug as I was just weeping like a baby. And then he gets up, and my wife's in cooking in the kitchen, and she said, and I remember hearing her saying, go ask Dad for this, and Wesley's like, but Dad's crying. and both times I asked God, I said, you have to take this. You have to take this from, I can't handle it anymore. And at that moment to experience him, because I felt him relieve the tension. He took the anguish away. And it was, both times were right before I had to go to a meeting. And I was able to go to the meeting with happiness and no negativity. And everything turned out great. It turned out well. And it's little things like that God shows up when we need him. That I don't think that people who, or I don't know how to say it, people who haven't experienced God, they don't understand how real he is. They don't understand that he wants to help us. And I have experienced that in so many ways, that he is real and he's there to help us. And so that pushes me on. But then there's the whole just reading scripture and knowing the end. I mean, once you realize that God is real, once you've experienced him in your life and you realize he's real, then that means the rest of the stuff in the Bible has to be real too. And the rest of the Bible, it talks about there's a heaven and a hell. Mm-hmm. I'm not interested in going to hell.
No.
I don't want to. It's a real place.
Right.
A lot of people want to teach that it's not a real place, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is a real place. And I don't want to go there. I'm not going there because I have a relationship with my Savior. And so that's what drives me on. That's what makes me the person that I am. That I want that relationship because I want to go to heaven. I want to enjoy the things that he has for us. And there's a lot of things he has for us he hasn't told us yet. It's a surprise. I'm excited about that surprise.
Amen. Awesome.
And so I don't know if that necessarily answers the question, but
That works for me. I
Okay.
think it's awesome. So, one last thing for you.
Okay.
This really isn't a question, but kind of is. But as we draw to a close here, like I said, I'm going to give some shameless plugs for different things. But I want to give Brad an opportunity to share about the area that he's at, and of course, again, the name of your church and your service times and such. So that the people that are watching, you may be here all the way from Clyde, Texas, but we don't know, and we're in Southeast Missouri, and this is the first interview we're getting to do. And I've already talked to Brother Rick Arp, and he's going to meet with me at another conference that I'm going to plug here in just a minute, and all that. But if they want to come and visit you, where do they need to go?
okay, well that's easy. We are on the south access road of Interstate 20 in Clyde. We're the only church on that road, so it's not hard to find. Just be on the south side of the interstate, and we're on the west side of town, kind of right there on the access road. And our service times, we have Sunday school at 9:45 in the morning for Sunday school, and then morning worship at 10:45. We have a 6 o'clock service in the evening, and then on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock we have a Bible study. Right now we're going through the book of Romans. The Bible study has been excellent. And then our youth group, right now, we've already had the conversation, the days are going to change because of sports at school, but right now at 6:30 on Tuesday nights, the youth are meeting. And then if for those who live in Clyde, we do outreaches called Meet Your Neighbor, and if you're in a neighborhood and you get a flyer for the Meet Your Neighbor, that is us. We're wanting to promote neighbors getting to know each other and just the kindness of the community. And so we host that, get a free hot dog and come out, and we want to invite you to church, and we want you to be a part of our family. So if you're just passing through and you want to stop on a Sunday, we'd love to have you. We got lots of space for everybody. So
Yeah, awesome. And also, I got to shamelessly plug my church, of course, Chaffee Assembly of God here in Southeast Missouri, Chaffee, Missouri. Reverend Brad Schoengert will be here at Chaffee Assembly of God on Sunday morning, delivering a message that God's laid on his heart. And so if you're in this area, Cape Girardeau, Scott City, Sykeston, Jackson, Morley, Benton, all the other towns that I failed to mention, come on out to Chaffee Assembly of God. We want you to come visit us too. But we have our services are all the same time. 9:45 Sunday school, 10:45 is worship service and kids church, and we have 6 p.m. we have a service, and then Wednesday nights we have. Our Wednesday nights are a little different. And this is what we're doing for Wednesday night. Wednesday night, we have Bible study at 6 o'clock starting next Wednesday. We're doing Bible study at 6 o'clock from 6 to 7. And then we're going to start doing youth group at 7. So we'll have Bible study for the adults. And then at 7, we will begin doing our youth group. So if you're in this area, we'd love to have you any of those times. But be here Sunday morning. We'd love to have you meet Reverend Brad Schoengert. I'm sure that he'd love to shake your hand.
absolutely.
We'll have an awesome time in the Lord. He's going to sing for us some. I kind of threw him under the bus on that one. He has an He's not just a great preacher; he can sing too. So anyway, a couple of the awesome plugs that I want to make sure that everybody knows about. If you want, we both are on Facebook. You can visit Travis Schroeder on Facebook. Remember Chaffee, Missouri. Brad Schoengert. If you can spell that, it's SCHOWENGERDT.
There you go. He got it.
And I can't spell to save my life. But anyway, so Brad Schoengert, and then also I have a Facebook page for the church here, Chaffee Assembly of God, at Chaffee Assembly. If you're looking that up, you can look all those things up. Some events that are coming up that you might want to take a look at. Want to make sure that, of course, we do live stream most of our services. We don't do all of them. I say live stream. We broadcast live on Facebook our services here at Chaffee Assembly. Also, there's some big events, like I said, coming up. If you're a minister and you're planning on going to the Acts 64 conference, Acts 64 conference, hit me up because I'd like to meet with you. That's what I'm doing with Brother Rick Arp. We're going to meet at the conference. It's in Texarkana, Texas, on January 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It's open not just for ministers, but for anybody who would like to go. Hotels are booking up really, really fast. Most of them that are where the conference at are already booked, but you can still get in that area. It's a free event to go to, and we're planning on being there. If you want more information on that, go to theacts64.com. And then there was one other one that I wanted to mention, but my mind is going blank at the moment. Look up, if you want to know more information about what we believe, go to ag.org. Or if you want to look up somoag.org, good references to what we believe in the Assemblies of God. But my interviews for this is not going to just be Assemblies of God pastors. This is going to be for everybody. We may even let some Baptists come in here, But we want to get everybody's viewpoint on different things, and so it's just it's been a blessing to have you here today, Brad. We just thank you for coming all the way from Texas just to do this. I think you come to visit me too, but we're glad to have you here. Thanks for being my guinea pig on this one.
Oh, no
I
problem.
hope it went well.
It's been fun. It really has.
yeah.
I think this is going to go well.
Yeah, so if you've got any comments on anything that was good or bad, more good than bad, preferably, just throw them down there. Questions you'd like to hear answered, because we can, as we do this, I may even just do one where it's just me, or I plan on having some pastor panels where we'll set up a table and do some question and answer stuff, that kind of thing. There's something in the Bible that you don't understand and you'd like to have explained a little more, put that up there, because I want to be able to answer anything that is thrown our way. Even if you're one of those naysayers that believe that there's contradictions in the Bible, oh man, throw those this way. We'll conquer those as well. But everything that we do, we want to do in the spirit of the Lord, be friendly, loving, and caring in all that we do. And I'm sure that Brad would agree with this, is to see souls saved for the Lord. Our goal, our calling, is to go into the world and share the gospel, and with everybody. And it doesn't matter who you are, and everybody needs Jesus with the gospel.